Very warm welcome to all of you. Today, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Manisha Choudhary with us. Manisha Choudhary teaches at Department of History, University of Delhi, as an assistant professor in the history of medieval India and specializes in history of Rajasthan. She has acquired her degree of bachelor's from Miranda House, University of Delhi, and pursued M.Phil and Ph.D. degrees from University of Delhi as well. She has written and lectured extensively on economic, cultural, social, and environmental history. In the past, she has also been a fellow at Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Rashtrapati Nivas, Shimla. Dr. Chaudhary will be speaking on the topic types of dialogue. Ma'am, you have up to 2 hours for the session, and you may leave as much time for questions and answers and discussions as you like.
Thank you, Rashmi, for such a generous introduction. I would like to first thank your foundation for inviting me on this platform. And it has been great being associated with, your foundation for a while. So, thanks for extending this opportunity. And I think I'm supposed to, we generally talk about dialogue on our platform. So if I see dialogue as such, or to see for anyone, dialogue is something which is in between two people. And I believe the first and the foremost thing for any dialogue to come up is to have not an argumentative idea, but to mainly have a purposeful understanding of each other, or to reach a conclusion wherein an understanding is created, not necessarily agreeing on the same point, but yes, allowing a space which is sufficiently for both the discussants, or you can say the members of the dialogue. There are certain necessities when we talk about dialogue. The first is there has to be a safe environment. Anyone who is into a dialogue shall be able to participate in that particular process without any fear or without any threat. Rather than most of the times we see that, these days there have been a problem that people would like to converse through an argument, they would like to prove a point. But dialogue necessarily doesn't mean that you need to prove a point. If you see dialogue, it's basically overall, it's a interaction between a thought and the action. Because generally dialogues are done. What is the purpose of a dialogue? There has to be a coordination. Otherwise, there is no need of dialogue. Because there is a thought, people would like to think about it and take it in a format of action. And this carrying forward requires people to dialogue and interact with each other, so that ultimately they are capable of reaching the particular situation, and they finally could actually arrive at a very, you can say, a consensusly built approach, where they ultimately are able to understand each other and finally go forward on the way that they wish to. Interestingly, as we know, the dialogues are of various types. And in the course of the foundation, which is the certificate course, you have seen there are 5 to 6 types of the dialogue that have been defined. The introduction of dialogue basically began with the contact of persons, because a dialogue is required not in between, it is required between everybody, every kind of person at every level. But most importantly, dialogue becomes essential when a person is supposed to interact with somebody who is considered to be an outsider or not an outsider. Being an insider also, the person is supposed to establish a dialogue that naturally gives an affinity or an understanding about somebody else's perspective. I'll just take a few examples from history, because my field is history, which will help, I'm sure, others also to relate and to move forward with these examples. I would take the most popular figure of history, that is Akbar. We all know the failure of dialogue between the ruler and the subordinate, or the ruler and the one who is contesting the other right, is generally leading during the times of Mughals into a clash. Most prominent of this, where the dialogue has failed and a third person entered into a conversation, was the conversation in between Salim and Akbar. We have seen that Jahangir all through his life have been the most dearest son of, Akbar, and Akbar has always been trying to prepare him for taking forward the Mughal Empire. And he is, the most eligible one, or you can say the one who is capable to take forward the Mughal Empire. And he was a different kind of person. He was completely different from Akbar on various frontiers. He was creative, he was concisor of art, he had, an instinct for nature, he has an instinct for hunting, all these things. But we have all seen Akbar has been crucially a man who has engaged with many things, but he was necessarily an empire builder. And he has tried to bring India together, win over the land, be it Bengal, be it, on the side of the northwest or on the central India and then to the southern India. He has been somebody who is necessarily engaging with the idea of making an empire or building an empire. But we see Jahangir is a bit different kind of person. And no doubt, because Akbar continued in his empire, or you can say he continued in the throne for a very long time. So Jahangir becomes little, anxious of the fact that when my father is going to be out of the throne and then when can I become the emperor? So we have seen that during, especially after 1590, he started rebelling against the state and he started rebelling not necessarily in the capacity to rebel against Akbar, but yes, to rebel to secure a seat for himself. This securing of seat by Jahangir has led to various confrontations between the father and son. And we all know that the confrontation has gone beyond, it has gone beyond certain limits because the conversation, or you can say the dialogue between the father and son actually ceased. Why did it cease? Because like Mughal emperors were generally putting their, prince into the job profile. They were governors of certain empires, certain provinces. Being governors, they are supposed to be in a distant place. They are supposed to be performing. They are supposed to be, getting results and things like that. We have seen that Jahangir has been doing well, but being there, his advisors are all the time telling him that why don't you become an emperor? And if you become an emperor, that will be greatly helpful. Plus, we are all there to support you for your purpose. So it's better that you start, going against Akbar and start planning for your own empire rather than serving all the time as a, subordinate or a governor. It's always fruitful to become a king in your own self. And obviously, the failure of Jahangir, the trust that Jahangir had all the time on his father, that started losing somewhere, and we have seen that Jahangir started rebelling. Ultimately, the failure of the conversation between father and son leads to a situation where he even started moving with his army towards Agra. He reaches Allahabad, and finally, the women of the house comes in the picture and they say, okay, fine, you need to understand that he's a young kid. He is ultimately your son, and you need to, pardon him. You need to be really, considerate. You need to be kind because he's the only one who can actually take forward the empire, and you should be considerate. So that is one example. Another very prominent example of, I would say, history is Gandhi. Gandhi, who has always stressed on dialogue. He continued to say all through his life that, dialogue is essential. So be it Gandhi or Nehru, be it Gandhi or Jinnah, be it Gandhi or Sardar Patel, be it Gandhi or British government, Gandhi was always open for conversations. He was always open for a dialogue. We all have seen in history that round table conference, or you can say the mandates of 1930, 31, they all could come forward because Gandhi was insistent on dialogue. Whenever they're rebelling or they have denied him an audience, Gandhi has stressed on the fact that no, I'm ready. I'm open for the dialogue. And the only thing is we need to define a platform. And which, as and when got defined, Gandhi was always available for the dialogue, and he continued to give, his opinion. He was never of the attitude that, okay, fine, I see that, okay, there is something which can be coming out from this particular, dialogue for me. So I would like to take that and, and say, okay, fine, this would do for me. But he's somebody who's always saying, no, there is a need to think beyond, because there is a purpose of my dialogue, and my purpose is bigger than what you can think. So we have seen that all through his life, he has been in dialogue with people. And whenever people have tried to, deny him a dialogue, or you can say there are people who went into an opposite party and those who are trying to say that, okay, there is no need of the dialogue, or we don't want to converse with you, we have seen that Gandhi is somebody who will start writing letters to them. And writing the letters, he's ensuring that there is a dialogue, there is a reply. Even the person, when they are not replying, Gandhi is insistent on writing back, again writing, constantly writing, I'm looking for your letter, I have written you these many, I have written you at that time, and I'm looking forward for your opinion, and I really value your opinion. So, making a person comfortable and trying to make a person realize that your opinion matters for me is something which is a unique need of any dialogue to be healthy. And this is a way by which you can ensure respect to the other person. And I believe respect and, something which has to be, given, like, honor, respect, trust are the initials to start any dialogue, be it a kid, be it a family member, be it an outsider, be it a colleague. You definitely need a bonding in the name of trust, respect, and safe environment. A person should feel open. They should not feel, okay, my opinion will be curbed, or my opinion will be sabotaged, or what I will express will go against me for after a point. So all these things are something which shall not come into a dialogue, because if these things come in a dialogue, it becomes problematic for anybody to participate in a healthy dialogue. And if a dialogue is not healthy, it is something which is planned, then there is a problem. There's a major difference between a dialogue and a debate. The difference survives on the fact that a dialogue is something that is done to reach a conclusion which is acceptable to both, or not necessarily reach a conclusion, but to create an understanding about each other's aspect, each other's, you can say, understanding each other's perspective or the backgrounds or whatever. But when there is a debate is basically either pro or against, and that is mainly for proving a point in a necessary fashion, and that too within the brackets where you have to win the argument. Otherwise, you are not a winner in the debate. But in dialogue, the initial, or you can say the base of the dialogue is you should be able to converse with a very, very convincing voice. You should be able to give large number of references, or you can say large number of inputs which help a person to naturally fall in line, or not to fall in line, basically to understand your perspective. And here you can say level is arrived where people would feel good with about each other, and they will feel like exchanging and taking it forward, because they would like to build a healthy relationship. Dialogue is primary for any kind of healthy relationship. We have seen all through our political studies that dialogues, whenever they have failed in between the countries have gone into the war. So if we look at the recent scenario of the world, we can see most of the wars are basically being fought because the dialogue has ceased. There have been no more scope for the people to come forward, to exchange with each other, and to talk to each other in a safe environment where they can actually make basic exchanges, or where they can actually try to understand each other's perspective and accommodate each other. So that kind of understanding is essential for success of any country, success of any relationship, success of any institution. Dialogue is primary. Proving the point is not necessarily important. You need to prove your point only on the technical issues. Like we can't say, if there is something which has to be proven rationally, we can't say, okay, fine, it is not getting proven rationally at this particular situation or time. Let's manipulate, and both of us, whatever we agree, reach us the results of experimentation. That is something which will be a gross wrong. And we have seen that Donna Haraway is another very prominent, she's not a I mean, she's not a historian. She is a biologist. She's a scientist of America. While she has been working into her labs, she has realized that the dialogue in between the nature and the human beings have failed. And when the dialogue in between the nature and the human being has failed, it has led to the problem of environmental crisis. So she gives examples, and she has written a very beautiful book, which is called as The Primate Vision. This book is amazing because it explains that how the monkeys, the chimpanzees, the apes, and all these, which are the, you can say the species which are very close to human beings in their genetic codes or their DNA codes, how they have lost the entire, you can say, the environmental existence, or how they have lost their existence in the environment. So she's trying to put forward that the dialogue between the species, or the dialogue with the species, has basically ceased. And now, what does she mean here? As I said, she's a biologist, she is a scientist, she is working on these, experimentations where there are medicines and everything's are getting developed in America for, saving the human species against the deadly disease and all. We have seen that she constantly says that, these all species are getting targeted because humans have defined, or humans have understood, that they really need not to protect all this. Only thing that needs to be conserved and protected and, given security is humans. And we have reached the stage where in Africa and various other zones, there are areas in which the animals are not free and there is nobody to talk on their behalf. So naturally, they are the target for all kind of experimentation. And now she says that what kind of experimentation? Experimentation of science, those experiments which are not in dialogue with the species, the experimentations that are not in the dialogue, or you can say not in conversation with the people of the area. And similarly, she says there is a complete arrangement that has been done in order to destroy, or not to destroy, but to make an industry prosperous, and on behalf of that, all other industries to lose. So she tries to fix it like that there is a dialogue which exists in between the nature or the environment or the components of environment and the human species earlier. Now that goes missing because now everything is getting hierarchized, and once it is hierarchized, naturally the animals, they have nobody to fight for their rights. There's no one who is going to fight for the conservation of them. There is no one who is going to come forward and say, okay, and these are the rights of the animals and they should be protected prior to the humans. So the prioritizing of something over another naturally defines that there is a hierarchy in place. So there can't be any dialogue as such into it. So these are the problems that we constantly see in terms of the dialogue, that wherever there have been a failure, like Donna Harvey again says, it's a failure of the dialogue of the science with the natural environment, and it is the experimentation science, or it is basically the chemical science that is not in dialogue with the natural sciences, and therefore they are only trying to evolve something and try to destroy something. So they are trying to destroy the virus and the bacteria which are creating diseases, and they are trying to create something which will give the immunity and things like this. But who is suffering? Who is suffering in this entire process? The burden of this particular experimentation is that the species which is close to the human. Now, and she also continues, because she has developed the entire thesis that how capitalism is basically a prime thing with the sciences, and therefore there will be no one to say you over a period that okay, sciences are not necessarily something which are only for the human benefit. There will be nobody to tell you that okay, sciences have also created a lot of loss, because there is a capitalist market behind them, and they are only trying to govern the entire globe in that particular way. Because like humans have the will, and they can desire to live longer, but an animal cannot express the desire to live longer, or they can't express in the way that okay, they would like to be protected from the disease. But if they are falling in the trap of the disease and they are to be killed, they will be killed without any second thought. Like we see the most popular case of swine flu and all others. We know this is to protect humans, but still, the idea is where Donna Haraway started long ago is that she says the dialogue between the nature and the natural sciences is not existing. And if it is not existing, there will be always be a party which will be at the receiving end of it, good or bad, whatever the outcomes are. But there will be always a party which will be pushing across its agenda and they would like to take everything forward in the same fashion. So these are the, you can say, these are the problems of this. Similarly, we have seen the importance of the dialogue has always been very, very crucial. To give you one more prominent example, we have seen that like Bhagat Singh has always ensured the importance of exchange, the importance of dialogue. And he has stressed very, very strongly that dialogue is the most crucial thing to protect any democracy. He has also constantly forced through his writings, which are collected beautifully by Chamandal and, Nurani, Eji Nurani, and many other scholars, who try to say that, dialogue is something which is all the time present in Bhagat Singh's viewpoint. And Bhagat Singh is always, all the time, very, very careful to stress that, okay, dialogue is something without which you can't actually manage. So his idea, or you can say the Bhagat Singh's existence or the idea's existence basically is on dialogue. He says any idea or any country would only survive if the dialogue continues. Once the dialogue ceases, then naturally the one who is trying to prove his points would like to prove his points, put his point forward, and then establish his supremacy over a period of time. So he says, even the ones who cannot dialogue, you need to appoint people, you need to really see who can actually dialogue on behalf of them. We need not to go really very far, but if we see how the Taliban government failed to talk with how the Afghanistan government failed to talk with the Taliban and ultimately how it went. Similarly, we see how Bangladesh, the government failed to interact with the ones who were wanting a dialogue, and then ultimately there is an overthrow. So everywhere in the world, the scenario would be same if the dialogue ceases and if there is no one to look into the fact that dialogue is prime and it can't be unidirectional. It can't be, rules are okay, you make rules, but rules are made in order to arrange things, in order to put things in order, rather than to sabotage somebody, rather than to subdue somebody and to, to propagate a specific idea in a specific way. So we have seen that dialogue all through the history, dialogue has been crucial. Now, again, when we look into, to be making it more personalized example, if we see, in our families also we need a dialogue, which is essential. And unless there is a dialogue, obviously we all know there are problems. The latest example, the reels you must be watching, it's all everywhere on the Facebook and all, that, earlier there used to be one landline connection in the families, and that landline connection was the one on which everyone received the calls. And whenever there was a call, people were curious enough to know, okay, the bell is ringing, then who is calling? So the entire family would, rush towards the phone and they would like to see that who is there on the call. But now, the reels that come is mother is busy in the phone, son is busy in the phone, father is busy in phone, everyone is busy in their own mobile phones, or you can say the cell phones. And that shows that the conversation, the exchanges have failed. And even most of the times, the family members don't get to know that what kind of depression or what kind of problems that particular person who is there has been facing in terms of the emotion, in terms of the traumas, or in terms of his professional, or in terms of any other part of his or her life. So we have seen that, randomly people get to hear, okay, somebody has committed a suicide. What? Why? Nothing is known, but yes, we are trying to decode his phone. We are trying to get his phone's access. And if the access is there, we would be able to say something which would be a
kind of concrete thing. So we know what has failed: the dialogue. Interestingly, if you see a bit, or you can say if we see a society which was just 10 years ago, we have realized, I mean, if I talk of myself, I'm from the generation when we did not have the cell phones in colleges, being students. And we know that all the time we would have something or the other to talk. And whenever there is a necessity, or, there is a time to have tea, or, we would like to talk, or if there is something missing in my place, I would like to immediately go, rather than, just order over my phone and, be in my isolated or even in my own cocoon. So the cozy space that internet, the cozy space that mobile has given people, has created more problems than resolving the life. They have given personal problems and resolved what has been you can say, the technical and governance issues. So that limitation, or you can say the dialogue people wish, that is now the new dialogue form, is the dialogue with AI. I have been seeing many students, I have been seeing many people who say, no, we talk with, I mean, when we stress on the need as a teacher that you need to, read books, they will instantly say, books? Why? We talk to AI. So what do you talk to AI? Then they would say, okay, you say anything to the AI would respond. So this is, I can say this is a situation where you have failed to use your mind, because you will put a question to the AI and AI will start repeating whatever has been whatever has been put into the data of the server, and whatever has been, whatever the Genie or Gemini has been able to pick, and then provide you a, concentrated information, where if you talk about philosophy, they will talk philosophy. You want science, they will talk science. You want history, they will talk history. But again, the perspective, the context, that while reading book you will be able to access, or you will be able to harness certain ideas while you read a book, that will completely be missing. But yes, the comfort that AI has given people, plus the governance issues that AI has solved for people, has made everyone habitual of this particular thing. And when they are habitual of it, obviously you are naturally becoming an introvert, which is becoming a problem for your personal psychological being, because ultimately, being humans, you feel like liberating your thought. Being humans, you have a natural tendency to relate and associate, because with AI you can be getting everything on your skin. I mean, you can feel everything on your skin, and you can get everything on your screen. But ultimately, what is missing is the initial warmth, you can say, the emotional exchange. AI can, listen to you. They can express your feelings. They can tell you the appropriate word to express, but it can't give you the warmth that an individual feeling, the look into the person's eye, the feel the person exchanges while they talk, or you can say the emotional connect that gets built up. That is what you will never ever be able to develop with an AI. So the AI is also, to a greater extent, responsible for, you can say, teasing the dialogue, because people prefer to have opinions rather than to have a dialogue. Because these days, the understanding that has been created all around, or you can say, because of the so-called capitalist world, where everyone is searching a job, everyone is fighting for a profession, or everyone is fighting for securing something or the other in their life, they would like to prove their point, because unless they prove their point, naturally they can't take their things forward. And if they're not able to take their issues, or you can say their agendas forward, naturally they will not be accepted. So to create an acceptance is something which is becoming very, very unique. And it is becoming unique for the very simple reason, because by becoming of that nature, or by creating that particular way of taking forward your agenda, has given people success. So even a person is not naturally designed to know, that is, the person is naturally seasoned, or he is or she is conditioned to take it in a particular way. So we see that, dialogue is something which ceases in the first place. A debate might not, because ultimately there you get a point to prove. Similarly, a dialogue ceases naturally because it requires patience, it requires understanding, it requires an emotional question, it requires some kind of basic understanding about the environment a person is coming from, or it requires a basic understanding about the issue and its background that the dialogue is about to deal with. So we know that, there are many prerequisites to a dialogue. As we all know, on the debate, we have a topic or we have a thing. And if we are prepared for it, we have to prove our point, we have to win our point. We just get into it, we sit down and, we keep on exchanging the things and we try to subdue the other one, we try to put our point up. And like that, we create something by which you can define that, okay, I win on these points and the person loses on these points. And this person has made these points which can be said to be relevant, but they're actually not relevant, right? So all these things are, to be very honest, are problematic over a period of time. No doubt it's a form of art, debate itself, but the ability to dialogue in a very refined way and to be able to put a dialogue which is convincing and to put forward a dialogue which creates a person to come forward and to be opening up is something which is the most successful thing to be done. And that is the need of the world, that is the need of the society, that is the need of humanism ultimately. Because that's the only thing, this is how the society is going to sustain, the society is going to survive. Otherwise, through a debate, obviously, the two things come out. One is defeat, one is victory. One who is victorious would say, okay, I proved my point, and the other would say, okay, I have not been able to prove my point, so I take a shame corner. And once that shame corner is settled, everyone have their own way of reacting. Some might just become silent with that, but certain have the tendency to become violent. And if that form takes violence, then it becomes difficult for the society, for the family, for the colony, and for everything. So we know that dialogue is crucial. But coming back to the dialogue, we have seen that it's very interesting to know that a dialogue has to be crucial because it needs to be classified, because otherwise we can't be able to, or we won't be able to know what nature of the dialogue is supposed to be. So in order to be very clear on the fact that, okay, what kind of dialogue it has to be, they are classified into various types. There is something called interpersonal, intercultural, interfaith, interreligious, intrareligious, and intergender dialogue. As their titles indicate to us, we all know that these are the types. So interperson is when two people will be talking. And who are these two people going to be? Those who would like to reach an understanding about each other, or it has to be in between two people for a particular agenda. There are many times that two diplomats are talking. So it's also an interpersonal dialogue in the first place. It is no doubt going to define the political policies. It is going to define the political future of the country. It is going to define the political relationships of the country, or you can say the diplomatic exchanges and things like that. But yes, on the initial level or at the first stage or on its primary level, it is clearly an interpersonal dialogue. The two people who come together have to be very, very respectful to each other, be it stage managed or be it, you can say it has been natural. But yes, we know that it is something very, very essential. Why it is essential? Because unless two people are opinioning that, okay, we need to reach this conclusion, or we need to define something, we need to rearrange our dialogue, or we need to, lead to certain findings, or we need to make our communication effective. Unless they know all this, the dialogue will not be successful. Interestingly, any dialogue
Similarly, the interpersonal dialogue would also require the critical thinking. Now, why would you need the critical thinking? Because dialogue doesn't mean that you necessarily agree to everything or you need to be convinced about things. Only thing is you need to be creating understanding about each other, or the two parties needs to create an understanding about themselves. So we know that this is a venture. On a large scale, it's a venture that requires multiple kind of efforts: critical thinking, understanding, assessment, you can say a reading around the issue, understanding about the person, the culture, the cultural backgrounds, or the present understandings, the changes over the, all these are something which are required by a dialogue. Unless these understandings are not there, a dialogue cannot actually fructify, or we cannot say that the dialogue would necessarily reach a conclusion. We have generally seen that when the interpersonal dialogue between the diplomats have failed, the states have reached a situation of stalemate. And therefore, if we interact with any kind of a diplomat or others, we all know that they all need, very strong, you can say, very strong support of each other. They need very strong understanding of each other, and they appear too polite to each other, because they know that's the necessity of making that particular dialogue successful. Unless they behave in that particular way, or unless they create understanding about each other, there'll be no way that they can actually take their countries forward. Now, coming back to any other instance, if we look at our colleagues, if we look at our families, or we look at our relationships, any kind of relationship, be it father or son, mother or daughter, mother or mother and father, or whatever. I mean, it's in between daughter and father. It's in between mother and son, or uncles or aunts. We generally find that in the family there are certain people with which we have a very very close affinity. Might be they don't live with you, might be they are not with you, might be you have never been in a very close contact with them. But your meeting, your exchanging with them gives you a greatly cohesive environment which you really like. Similarly, you find them very, very understanding for your perspective. So naturally, you would like to, give them what you feel is important for you, and you would like to express your viewpoint freely. But if we see that most of the interpersonal dialogues fail immediately when two people are unable to create a basic cohesive environment, and they fail to understand each other's ideas, or they fail to understand the fact that, okay, let the other person also have the time to express self, and then let me express myself, or let's have a chance for each other that, okay, now you speak, okay, now I speak, you speak on this, I have spoken on that, what is your opinion? We need to respect the opinion and the understanding of the other person to keep the dialogue healthy. Plus, the person, if the person is not comfortable enough, then everyone in that particular dialogue is supposed to make the person comfortable. If there are, I mean, there must be people who are working, those who are into professional life. You must have seen any boss who is very open to your ideas. You generally tend to become friends with them. And in long run, you people start innovating, you people start critical thinking, you people start criticizing each other, you people start appreciating each other, you people start eating out, you people start, taking vacations together, and you generally develop a very, very close bonding, which is, which is a space which makes you people more associated, or you can say more related to each other, in a sense that you feel, okay, I get my space there. So this idea of getting space is something that keeps any person, or you can say that's something that keeps any person to come forward and talk. So we see dialogue is something that becomes crucial when it is interpersonal, and understanding is the prime of it.
and you have to be open about other person's opinion, and therefore interpersonal dialogue actually becomes successful. Now, if you look at the business people, or if we talk about businessmen, we find they are good communicators always. So for a dialogue, it is also important a person has to be a good communicator. The person has to be somebody who can actually put across his point or can give a genuine, wholesome understanding of the topic. It's not that you have to be, you have to be really all the learned, really Aristotle or Socrates of your time to be talking about something. But yes, you need to have the basic understanding and you need to have some information on your hand, because a dialogue, and especially interpersonal, because there the prime factor is trust. A person is talking to you in trust. So if you disturb the trust, or you try to subdue the trust, or you harm the trust, then naturally a person would like to go away from the relationship or whatever the exchange is, and they would say, okay, whatever they say, you need not to literally trust it. So that is the prime. You can be you are a good communicator, but you should be able to express yourself. Good communicator here necessarily doesn't mean that you have to be really, great in your looks. You have to have a very good language or things like that. But yes, you should be able to put across your point, what you wish to say. And it's always very important for any interpersonal dialogue to use a medium which is, across both the parties. So be it in between two people, be it in between, five people or whatever. But it has to be a good communicator who puts across, and the language has to be something wherein you are capable of understanding exactly the feeling of the thing. Like, if I tell you, I'll just give one example. I don't know it's the right place to give an example in Hindi or not, but yes, just to give an example. If you see in Hindi, like on Google, when you translate hello, so Google might translate it just as hello, or it would might say namaste. But when you see namaste in itself, namaste involves large many paraphernalia around it. Similarly, to give you one very prominent example is when we talk about the folk deities, or they are considered, they get translated in Hindi as Lok Dev Devta. But when it comes to Google, or when it comes to the medium of people who don't understand, if you say folk deity, so they would understand, okay, there is something which only the people who living in the forest or the hilly area, not connected to the main society, something must be doing. But we all know there are folk deities in Delhi, there are folk deities in Mumbai, there are many others. The prominent gods came to the picture much later, but yes, these folk deities were always present on the Indian landscape. So we have seen that, that gap exists because the emotion is not getting conveyed. In interpersonal dialogue, emotion, conveying of the emotion is a prime thing. Be it, as I said, between the diplomats, or what is the emotion behind the idea that they are trying to, prosper, or things like that. Now, classes. In any class, an effective community of students will be the ones who are able to put across their point to the one who is supposed to judge them and who is supposed to check their leadership skills. Another prominent feature of interpersonal dialogue is the leadership and the exchange of the leadership. Like, you should be able to nominate a leader. When there is a group which is supposed to go into an interpersonal dialogue, that that, okay, one party will give one person and you are supposed to nominate one person, then there should be a natural understanding in the group that, okay, we need to nominate who is a good communicator. You need not necessarily you might be a very good researcher, but you might not be a very good communicator. So that naturally gives you a negative hand, because you might have researched very well. But when it comes to putting across your idea and create an understanding about your issue or the agenda at hand, you will not be able to do so. So therefore, it's a natural, you can say it's a joint venture where you should be able to nominate somebody whom you think, okay, this person would be a fit person to take forward or convey our ideas in this particular way. Any teacher who is a good communicator
Any teacher who is able to keep his classes open or her classes open for the dialogue is generally highly valued or highly praised and appreciated by the kids and students. Any scholar would be able to bring out a very good thesis. Any scholar or any, assistant editor would be able to bring out a very good editorial piece only when they know that their editor is open to accept their ideas and he can or she can put it through their pen, and then they can easily discuss whatever the editor or the chief would like them to discuss with them. And why they are putting the point there? Because they have the clarity that they can prove their point. So these understandings are very crucial for anyone to create understanding and to go forward with an understanding about the idea that how they are supposed to take forward these issues and these ideas. So as I said, again and again, what matters is not to push across your viewpoint. In interpersonal dialogue, what matters most is to create an understanding about each other and to create and not to put somebody into a position where somebody takes a shame corner and feels that, okay, I have to really, be backseated and I can't actually participate the way I wish. Then only an interpersonal dialogue fails and students stop participating in class. Once they stop, obviously their natural instincts of questioning, their natural instincts of critical questioning, their natural instinct of stopping the discussion and asking, okay, you said this but I could not get it, but I have seen these kind of issues in a different perspective, so how would you like to take it forward? So that is primary, because that query that has come at that point of mind in their head is something that needs to be answered. If not answered, that needs to be satisfied. Unless it is satisfied, it will create a problem, because once they would question, second time they would like to interrupt, and third time they will lose interest, and then the dialogue fails. So we find that there are certain people who constantly complain that, in the first class I had 200 students, in the next I had, nearly 150. And by the time, we are mid of the semester, there are hardly 50 students in my class. But there are also people who say, okay, in the initial I had 30, now I have 70, and by the end of the semesters, they are finding more than, houseful classes. And the only students who have even passed out, they would like to come down to their classes just to listen to their lectures. I mean, their dialogue is so unique that we need to really go forward and talk about it. So language is, again, very essential component to do it. So again, as I say again and again, for all kind of dialogue, be it interpersonal, interreligion, intrareligion, intergender, any dialogue, knowledge, critical understanding, and clear understanding of the issue, and listening to the person carefully and speaking back your point, not to prove, but to just add to the understanding, is crucial. And with this, if we move forward to our next category of dialogue, we would see that those dialogues are not something that go into a radical fashion, because there are people who can establish dialogue through written communication. There are people who can establish dialogue not through written communication but through non-verbal and then verbal, and then entirely silent conversation. So if we look at the intercultural dialogue, we see this is the most difficult thing to do, similar as the intergender thing is. Why these two are very difficult is because most of the time we live in our own cultural cocoon. And when we live on our own cultural spaces, we fail to understand other person's culture. Secondly, we are all occupied in our day-to-day living, that, or you can say earning our bread and butter, that we hardly find time to actually understand and to go close to some other culture. We have seen the crusades. I mean, historically there have been examples of that there was misunderstanding about the culture. Islamophobia these days is another very prominent reason of this cultural failure, or you can say the failure of the intercultural exchanges. We see that certain cultures are clearly considered as barbarian, notorious, evil,
and on all kind of, negative words that you can really find in a dictionary, all are, ladened over there. Why? Because people who are there, who are creating an opinion, are basically the ones who live in a great distance with that culture. And being in a great distance, they fail to understand that, okay, there are all kind of people, there are all kind of things. There is a basic stem of the culture, but other than that, there is all the paraphernalia, and paraphernalia is again something which a person defines by his own on herself. To give you a very prominent example, the culture. If I talk of culture of royalty, most of the times we have seen the courts that have understood the culture, or the courts that have created understanding about the cultures of others. They were the most prosperous courts of their time. So be it the Ottomans, be it the Safavids, be it the Mughals, they were the most prosperous empires of their time in the historical sense, because they were the ones whose you can say the courts and their darbars were open spaces where people can come forward, leaving aside the protocol of the court that they're supposed to follow and stand accordingly, and pay nazars and everything accordingly. There was a respectful exchange of the opinion. There was a constant acceptance of their cultural being. Like we see Akbar, he has been so open to all the Jews who came to his court, and even so much so that he named one of his wives as Maryam. Similarly, when we see further, we see the Mughal fresco paintings in the Red Fort and the this peacock throne of Shah Jahan. We see the fresco paintings behind them. They contain the Cupid, which are basically an understanding of the word of Byzantine. So that space creation for somebody, or the assimilation of somebody's culture, to respect them and to give them some understanding, or to, you can say, to give them a environment where they feel that, okay, here we can actually exchange in this particular way, is something that becomes crucial. We have seen that whenever the diplomats are exchanging with each other, they are trying to be into the cultural form of that particular culture. I'm not saying religion here, but culture, for necessary. Like whenever people visit to Northeast, they would prefer to wear the the dress or the cultural costumes of the North. Whenever they are going towards Rajasthan, they would prefer to have a particular headgear of Rajasthan. If they are in Karnataka, they would do different things. But if they are in Arabia, they would like to different things. If they are in America, they would like to dress up differently. And all that is something that is to, basically, you can say, these are part and parcel of the diplomacy, because you would like to make the other one feel that, okay, I know your culture this bit, right? But there have been people like Gandhi and Nehru who never tried to adopt anything which they felt is something they really need not to. But yes, they have been doing everything which they considered as indigenous, because they were all together going for a NAM kind of cultural value system, where they were saying, we are the non-aligned. We don't want to fall into the cultural trap of anybody. But yes, we respect all cultures. We are open for all cultures. We are ready to interact with you. We are ready to create an understanding. But yes, as far as imitation of the culture is there, we are not going to imitate. If you look at the historical figures, you find many of them like that. And there have been powerful forces like this. Like we have never seen Akbar wearing any kind of other dresses. We never see Jahangir, dressing up very differently. He has always been into his Mughal attire. So all this is something which is unique, that you have to have a clear understanding of your culture, and with that you have to have an understanding of the other. So you need to be working on your knowledge system all the time, to enhance your knowledge system, to accommodate whatever the cultural forms you see. And if you want to interact with them, you have to have a pre-understanding rather than pre-notion or prejudiced about them. You need to have an understanding and to take it forward. In intercultural dialogue, the most important thing that becomes is intercultural dialogue is something which is again aspiring to give a very strong understanding of success, bliss, and peace. These are initial things Because no culture actually says, okay, we want to teach you violence. Or no culture talks that, okay, we would like to, make you feel like, killing everybody around you. So we see Buddha and Mahavir. That's a culture. Buddhism and, Jainism. I'm talking of these two necessarily because these are two cultures which are, present throughout the globe in a very minimum number. And they are the ones who have a historical lifeline. And if somebody talks to me that, when conversion started of people, they started converting to another religion, I say Buddha was the first one to convert people. He is somebody who said, okay, whatever you feel, become a Buddhist, become a nun, become a monk. So he started giving them imagination, you can become something, right? Because his path is something that is asking you to achieve the enlightenment, but by becoming something. And that something is something that you are supposed to locate by your own self. So unless you have a cultural understanding about others, you are going to be in the dark world of your own self and, keep going up and down in the same thing and say, okay, I'm trying to search truth, but I'm not able to. The search of the truth has to be something which is liberating. It has to go beyond. And the search of the truth is necessarily something where the effort is involved by, trying to learn about others and by creating an environment where you really feel, okay, all these elements of these cultures and these elements from this culture and these elements of that culture basically create a basket for me where I feel liberated. Because unless you are not liberated within, you cannot actually have a very, very successful intercultural dialogue. Now, if I talk of, a society where there is, a person or you can say, I mean, in terms of religion, I would like to come down to directly to the religion. Religion is something that is a very sensitive issue. Why it is sensitive? Because every religion or any religious understanding gets defined only in the time when the person is born, what all they have seen, what all they have been through, and how they have taken it forward. Like if I say the generation that is now radicalized or being radical, why they are so? Because their understanding about the other cultures or other religions has been created or is something which they have not learned. It is something that has come down to us in a particular way, and they have just picked up thinking that whoever is teaching them are sufficiently trusted by them, and they have been believing all through their lives that, okay, what they have taught us is correct. Like to give you one more example of Osho, because he talks about religion, he talks about everything. Osho says, the moment the children grow, the first thing that they do, by the time they are 18, 19, or they are aspiring, becoming youth, the first thing that they start doing is they start distrusting their parents, they start trusting their friends. And he says, and he's a philosopher, he's a great philosopher of his time. And he says, why does it happen? It happens because all the dialogue that you have given to them, jitna bhi vichar you have given, all the ideas that you have given to them, they find all of them false after a point. Why they find false? Somebody is there who has been asking you, how did I came to the world? You will tell them, we went there, God has given you and we brought you here. Some temple gave you, or some God gave you, Vishnu ji gave you, tum Shiv ji ki aashirwad ho, or you are a blessing from Allah or something or the other. There are temples all across the world where you are blessed for fertility and things like this. So they are not taught in the real way, but they are taught in a certain fashion that, okay, you are blessing of that particular being, because the mother and the father or the parents are somebody who has been seasoned into it, and they are giving on because they believe what has been taught to us, we have been okay with it, we have learned in our way, they will also learn. So the first thing that they discover being youth is that no, there's no God that gives. There is this process by which we are born, and this is something that happened, and we are there on the earth. So therefore, they start distrusting, and therefore they start developing close relationships with others rather than developing a close relationship with their parents at that stage. Secondly, the seasoning of the parents is something that keeps them aloof from them. Seasoning in the sense, parents have all their own, prejudices, notions, like, having a, opposite gender friend is wrong. You should not have them. Similarly, many other things. A girl should not be going with a boy, or a girl should not be going out and this and that, or a boy should not be making friends with this. And if they are making friends, they should not be talking to them in being home. And especially, they can talk in front of them, that they should not be talking in front of the grandparents and things like that. Because everywhere, the notion of, reputation, social status, everything is there. So they learn to manipulate their dialogue. Once they learn to manipulate their dialogue, and once they start discovering something, they start distrusting you. And same is the case with the interreligion dialogue. As I said, I've taken this example because it makes more relatable. Same is the case with the interreligion dialogue. Interreligion dialogue is something that happens between two religions. As we know, we need to have an understanding, we need to have a clarity, we need to have a cultural setup, or we need to have, you can say, an affinity, if not an affinity, at least an open mind to listen and hear that, okay, how their philosophies have evolved. We fail these days to do so, but we all know Akbar has done Mazharnama. Akbar has done Mazharnama. He invited all the people who believed in some or the other religion that come forward, come and discuss with me what is your religious philosophy. And therefore, after knowing Jainism, Buddhism, Niyog, Adipant, Gorakhnath, Nathpanthis, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktyites, Naqshbandis, Sunnis, Shias, all kind of philosophies, all kind of Chishtis, all kind of Jewish philosophy. After knowing everything, he has discarded all. He said, all of you are doing the same thing. All you have made is different baskets. The thing that all baskets are the same. Everyone is talking for peace. Everyone is talking about liberation. Everyone is talking for evolution of human soul. But none of you are reaching a conclusion because you are in competition with each other. You are in competition to prove mine is better than yours, rather than understanding simply the fact that you and me, or Jainism, or Buddhism, or be it Nathpanthi, or be it Yogis, or be it, Nirankaris, all of us are just the philosophies that have evolved in their own times. They have a historical backing. Why they have a historical backing? Because in each time there was a specific need for which a particular saying or a particular thought has emerged. You all fail to understand what was the base cause of it. So we see that this is what he discarded, and he started Sulahekul. He started saying, there's only one God, whichever is the God, it is your belief. You believe in Shiva, you believe in Vishnu, you believe in Allah, you believe in Mahavir, you believe in Buddha. That's your job, not my job. Only thing is, Sulahekul. All religions aspire to live. All religions are something which are looking for peace, prosperity, healthy environment. But all you fail to create that because none of you have thought of Sulah, that ultimately you are supposed to reach a dialogue. You are supposed to need to establish a dialogue and understand each other. I have understood, therefore I say there is something called Sulahekul. No God is great, no God is less. All gods are equal, all religion aspire for same, and therefore you should have inter-religion dialogue without the idea that you need to prove or you need to be in competition to prove mine is better than yours. So this is the thing that you need to erase when you talk the religion or inter-religion dialogue. In terms of inter-religious and intercultural dialogue, the things that are important is integration. Similarly, negotiations in between the dialogues, that is crucial, that whenever there is a heated argument, or you can say whenever there is a point which is becoming or triggering the argument towards a negative side, or it is taking it towards an extreme, there needs to be a intervention which stops that stream and says, okay, we are deviated from the point, we need to come back to our central theme rather than, just spreading all over. So this is how we see that there are various types of dialogues. Kofi Annan, he has said, without dialogue within and between civilization, cultures, and groups, no peace can be lasting and no prosperity can be secure. This is his belief that, to have a dialogue or to make civilization and cultures and groups sustain in peace, intercultural and interreligious dialogue is important because he is living in the age where economic development is the need for everybody. So rather than focusing or rather than having debates or discussions about understanding of civilization and culture, everyone is talking about, okay, what are the aspects of economy, how to develop the economy, what are the ways by which economy, what are the parameters of the economy, what all are the dimensions which have not been looked so far, where are the margins on which you can pull up the economy. So all that is something that is keeping people busy because it's the world which is looking for the economic development, and being into that, everyone has forgotten that peace and intercultural, interreligious dialogue is prime to ensure any kind of peace, and that will only ensure economic development, and that economic development actually will be having foundation on the dialogue between civilization, cultures, religions, and groups. Right. So, like that, all kind of dialogues to say that interfaith. Again, faith is something it's something in between religion and culture. Faith are always personal. If somebody's faith exists into the fact, or here I would like to mention about uh, somebody who is finding a very difficult phase of the life, or you can say a friend who is going through a lot of thin of the life and he is into dense waters of life, then if he's trusting or she's trusting you to a certain extent in terms of the faith, that okay, there I can repose and therefrom I can actually find a very significant information or a very potent support. That is the faith that comes in. A faith is, you can say it's a mixture of many things. Faith naturally is something that becomes achievable, but once you start ignoring the fact that there is a trust, then the faith is eroded very, very soon. Like for interfaith, the first important thing is to meet somebody. Interfaith dialogue can actually prosper, can only prosper only on these facts. You have to have a meeting, you need to talk, you need to understand, you need to build a meaningful relationship, and then you need to keep the survival on. And with that survival, you need to keep the principle of democracy at the central. Like you can't say, I'm elder to you, okay, what I'm telling you is the final, truth. There's no truth which you are believing in. I'm telling you the way out, you just follow that. That can't be the way for an interfaith dialogue. Democratic culture is very, very crucial in interfaith dialogue, as it is crucial for interreligious, that you should not be posing yourself, you should let the opinions come forward. But in interfaith, the democratic and multi-faith society, not society, basically, the democratic environment is very, very crucial to make an interfaith dialogue fruitful, or you can say, make an interfaithful dialogue successful. Now, interfaith dialogue, what it leads to? It leads to humanization of the person. Somebody might be highly ferocious. You must have seen in your life, there are people whom you have seen highly, highly ferocious. They must be, angry all the time. They must not be liking to interact. They must be highly, of the value system which you people and all the others feel that, okay, we don't know what kind of social set or how his upbringing or her upbringing have been. But we see that over a period of time in the life, we are able to see them that they transform completely. They transform because the human element of their life has met them. That human element can be anything. Interfaith dialogue, for interfaith dialogue, that can be anything. It can be a friend, it can be a relationship, it can be mother, it can be a wife. All these things can lead to that. So, all this is something which is very, very, I'll just stop. Just give me another 2 minutes. I'll wrap up the thing. So we know in interfaith dialogue, humanism is the prime principle. So therefore, we have seen all through our lives that, even the devils, convert into humans, and they start becoming highly, highly docile to accept most of the things around them, and to only live with the idea that I know to be knowing my agenda clearly, rather than fighting and getting pissed off with everything every now and then. So this is how we need to, break down the walls of the words, and we need to build up the, platforms. And it is only the dialogue that can ensure that in between cultures, religions, gender, faith, and persons, there is harmony, there is democratic system, because dialogue necessarily demands a democratic understanding of the issue, and the respect for democratic value system, where you shall be able to accept the other person and their value system. Lastly but not least, intergender dialogue. Intergender dialogue is a great problem all across the world, and therefore we see that there is a violence, there is, you can say, crime against women all across the globe in the same way, in same fashion. Why is it so? It's simply because the understanding of the other gender is clearly missing. And here I will not take much example of women, because now many women have gone out, they have fought their own battles, they have made names for themselves, they have earned a space for themselves. But I would like to straight talk about the transgenders. If you look at the transgenders, we have completely missed out the dialogue with those people. I have shared an interview in the group, with your organizers. That interview would help you to understand that how the people, the transgenders who were so crucial for the society all through the medieval centuries, they lost the ground, and now they do not appear anywhere on the real scenario of the state or of the dialogue. They are always into the dark zones. They are somebody to be feared. No one wants to interact them. They are considered as a social disorder. And if they aspire for something, that is considered as too aspirational, rather than just realizing they are humans. They have basic needs also of food and clothing and housing. As the situation was with the women nearly at least 30 years ago, that it was considered, okay, the last of the thing has to be given to the women, because the rest all has to be maintained. But I am sure, like this talk is international, so it's no point taking examples about women from, say, Bangladesh, India, or Jakarta. It's better to talk about, because women have been participating in all kind of physical activities equally. You look at the example of many countries. They have been working in fields, they have been working in homes, they have been producing clothes, everything. But only the fame that comes to the family is the man is a great artisan. Might be the woman is designing all the things, but it's the man whose name goes. Similarly, women are doing all the agricultural activity in Haryana, Punjab, and others. They are all the time in their fields. Men don't work in fields. But all the produce that goes to the mandi goes into the name, or you can say the food market goes in the name of the men, and it's the men's account that operates. And women in the home, they only get the basic to run their household, rather than to really spend on yourself. Men still have the grooming, the funds to groom themselves even in the villages, but women hardly find that the funds to groom themselves in villages. So all that is something which is very personal, because the understanding about the gender is women needs to spend on grooming only before the marriage. Women need not to spend on the grooming after marriage, because she is married and she needs no more grooming, right? So this gross wrong that has been done is because there is a missing understanding that they also have desires, they also have a human inside them, they also have feelings by which they feel good, and they would like to make themselves feel good. Similarly, the transgenders, I have shared it as a longish thing, I don't want to get into this, but the politically, economically most significant class of the Indian landmass, or of the Ottomans, of the Safavids, of the Turks, they have been prominent all across the globe. How the transgenders became something that needs to be feared, that needs to be kept aloof, and the people need not to be of the so-called, the social order, need not to be interacting with them, to keep everything sane, or to save the evil of the society. With this, I would like to rest my talk, and the floor is open for question. Over to you, Rashmi.
Thank you, Manisha ma'am. Really, really enlightening, and the trajectory that you took to explain the kind of and the types of dialogue. So currently now the floor is open for questions, and you all can raise your hand and ask your questions by unmuting your mic. So anyone, some initial thoughts, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, very nice talk, madam. But one doubt, like, since we have to share our reflections, can we get some like some material or some PPT based on which we can make make our summary or our reflections?
I think I have shared with the organizers. I think it will be circulated to you people soon, because I have given 2-3 readings about, which is about from UNO, and one is on the intergender, and one is because on transgender there's nothing, so therefore I have given an interview.
Okay.
And there is a book chapter which, if required, I'll share. I'm more than happy to share.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I have bored everyone so much that everyone is tired.
Not at all. I think Purvi, and after that Ranveer, you can ask your questions. So Manisha ma'am, one thing that I wanted to ask is, would you like to take questions in bunch or one after another? So maybe 2 questions we can take together. Will that be suitable? Yeah. So yes, Purvi, Dr. Purvi and Ranveer, please go ahead one after another.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you for an interesting presentation. I have a few doubts I'd like to ask. I went through the papers that you'd sent, and I also went through your talk. Very interesting. I do have this. So we were talking about intercultural exchange and intercultural dialogue. I'd like to ask, what is cultural appropriation and how do you differ it from cultural amalgamation? And then if we're talking about understanding each other culture while talking, like, how do you differentiate between the two? Because there's often seen that we sometimes, what we do, we dress. For instance, you were talking about northeastern dress. So sometimes we do dress, we do put on their attire, or let's say I am from UP. I do put some South Indian attire, then I might get labeled as, being culturally appropriated, or she's doing something which she's not a part of. So how do I sort of navigate my way through it? And how will I differ it from cultural amalgamation? Because I'm doing it to sort of, blur the line that I am a part of this culture and somebody else is a part of that culture. I'm trying to amalgamate that. So one thing is that. And then I am still a little confused between interreligious and interfaith. So if you could just elaborate that for me as well. Thank you.
See, when we talk about culture, basically, I'm just mentioning, as you gave an example. Am I audible?
Yes.
So when we talk of intercultural thing, the culture is something when you dress up like that, to take just your example forward, when you dress up like that, the idea is that you are trying to be part of it, right? But you necessarily don't understand the idea behind it, right? Okay. So if I give you one prominent example, in the entire northern India, we all have a Bharat system. There are Bharats for the marriages. Similarly, in all marriages, the bride is supposed to be something around the red color, right?
Right.
But in South India, most of the brides wear white.
Right.
You might go to a South Indian friend's wedding and you would see that, okay, everyone is in white sari, so you will also go for a white sari, right? And everyone is wearing a silk sari even in the scorching heat. Right. You would also wear a silk sari because everybody is doing. So we feel that, okay, this is culturally appropriating and might be it is correct. So therefore everyone is doing, right? But what is the cultural significance is something that we miss to understand, right? But in South India, the white is considered as the most pious color.
Right.
I'll give you one more example. In North India, whenever we go to express our condolences to somebody's home, women tend to cover their head. right? You try to put some, covering, you try to put some dupatta over your head because it is considered that is respectful because you are going to somebody's home. Similarly, whenever we do a puja, we try to cover our head. Bhai ko rakhi bandhna hai, so you please cover your head. Or if you are doing something, please cover your head doing puja or something like that. So there is a mark of respect. But in southern India, if you take something on the head, especially during the time of a celebration or a puja, they will consider it very bad. Why? Because for them, covering the head is only during the time of a death. Women in northern India would never shave off their heads. In South India, anybody who is making a, who is getting a boom from Tirupati would like to shave off their head. Right? So we will just understand, okay, this is something, but to just assimilate yourself, you have done that action because that might make others good, being you there, and they feel, okay, that she is part of us, right? But you necessarily might not be able to get into the thing of it, right? Because as I said again and again, it is not only that the cultural understanding is missing with the one who is an outsider. Most of the times, even the insiders are not knowing the cultural significance of it. That is the problem. Most of them, if you ask why you wear a white sari in a marriage, they would say, since ages we are wearing like that. Right? So that is the thing, because if you look into the history of Malabar coast, you find that Malabar coast was popular with Arabia because of the white cloth, and the entire white cloth from Malabar from 7th century onwards have been going to Arabia. Right? So the kind and the variety of the cloth that they make is highly, airy, right? And plus it looks very royal. So golden and white, that's no combination. It's a royal combination, right? But their Mahabali, when it appears in Onam, it is all, colorful. So that gap that comes in, because the literatures are missing, there is nobody to talk about them. People are more to talk about rituals. Ye kariye, havan kariye, do some puja, do that. So the you can say the base of it, what was there, that goes missing. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha. Mr. Ranveer and Mr. Jay, please ask questions one after another, and Manisha, then we will take the questions together. So if it is possible.
Hello, I have a question, ma'am.
Yes, Ijaz, yes, please, you go ahead, because I think he had really unmuted far back. So let's go ahead with Ijaz. And then please, Ranveer, you go ahead. Dr. Manisha, is that okay? Please, we'll take two questions together. There's a lot of people are asking. So in case.
No problem.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. How are you? Fine.
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. I have a basic question, ma'am. As you have given example of Jahangir and Akbar and Gandhiji and Bangla. Now the Bangladesh rebellion, ma'am. Bangladesh is still just 1 month before, ma'am. So why dialogue is required when you have become a rebellion, ma'am? Why? Because when a government, ruling governments passing a rule which is against the students, why they have not discussed before the passing the rule, ma'am? When they revealed, they are trying to dialogue with the student, and dialogue failed, and we have seen what happened, ma'am. So why dialogue require after the rebellion, ma'am? So
no, if there would have been dialogue before, right? I did not say you need dialogue after. I said if there would have been dialogue before, there would have been no rebellion, because the party got an audience, right?
Yes.
India's farms movement is that only. Farmers protest is that only. The dialogue is missing. You make a rule. The party who is going to suffer the rule is asking for a dialogue. If you don't dialogue, it will definitely lead into rebellion. But when? It will lead into the rebellion when it is an organized force. Like you have seen in China. If you see historically, China had a student revolution because they missed to exchange with the students. They thought students, it makes no difference, let us not dialogue. And they passed a rule in the university. University went into rebellion. right? And the government was thrown out. So we know that the same is the case. If there would have been dialogue beforehand, student issues would have got addressed. Because see, when somebody is coming for a dialogue, they are not necessarily wanting that there has to be resolution of all my issues. But the idea is, if I come for a dialogue, I wish that, okay, if I have 10 demands and if I have 10 agendas, at least my, 5 have been taken care, rest 5 are not, they cannot be taken care because they have explained us the pressures and the, pros and cons of it and the after effect of it, or you can say historical importance of it. So we have dropped the other 5. 3 are getting completely, resolved, and 2 are somewhere in 50-50 or 60-50, right? So like that, the missing of the dialogue basically leads to rebellion. After dialogue, it is not dialogue. It is only a way to mediate. Therein the arbitration comes. If we legally define these terms, then the arbitration comes in. There's no more dialogue. Because the other party would come forward with a demand and you will go forward to tell them, okay, create peace. We are going to give you all this. Because as Gandhi said, one eye for, an eye for an eye, entire, world will be blind. So there is no way by which the government, after a point when they realize that, okay, they cannot use force beyond a point because it's ultimately the youth of the country. And if you lose on the youth, then there is no hope because they are either sons and daughters of somebody, and if they are getting killed, their parents will also lead into revolt. Right? And if they rise in the revolt, the entire country is disturbed. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Manisha. It was such a wonderful to listen to your talk. Is it possible if I just also respond to the Ajaz's comments which he just asked? Yeah. Hi, Ajaz. I teach here in Central University Jammu, social work, and the question which you raised. So, as Dr. Manisha was also just rightly saying that if your dialogue failure, then that confrontation come. And when we take, if you see the typology of various social movements also, initially dialogue get initiated, advocacy happen parallelly, and when the advocacy channels are also open, dialogue is also open, they are just, if they are somehow failing or just getting some negative impression, then confrontation and just disruption it come at a last stage. But once it happen, then there is this very less possibility to just reverse the whole issue. So that's at the very last stage. I have a rather than a insight, rather than a question, it's just a more just like an insight where I would like to hear not only Dr. Manisha's point of view, but if other participant would also like to share their insight with their own personal experiences. I personally consider that family is a very repressive institution. And whatever, in most of the cases, whatever, whenever, in whatever phases of our life we like the most, family will always saying, no, 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 don't do this, don't go for this. They always try to stop us from that. And when we are talking about dialogue, it is just like that. Now here, both the parties within the family as an institution, both the parties know the context, they have that understanding of culture, they have the understanding about each other's issue, each other's perspective, but still they fail to establish that dialogue within the premise of this family as an institution. So how you guys see this thing? That how many of you agree to this, that family is a very repressive institution, or is it only me who is strongly believing that?
Dr. Manisha, would you like to take the question, or we can take Jay's question also, and then we can see how the flow of the thought is. So meanwhile, you can probably...
I think Sir has basically asked everyone to participate. I don't know. I have my very, strong opinions about certain things of family. So I don't know. I should be commenting first, or I should be the last to say anything.
Okay, so maybe we can begin with someone who would volunteer to respond to this, and so maybe we can begin with Jay, and Jay, you can add to the question for which you had actually raised the hand. Yeah, Jay, please go ahead.
Sorry, do you want me to respond to Ranveer sir's comment? I can do both. I have a question ready and I can respond to that.
Yeah, you can go for both. Yeah.
I think like his issue is sort of valid, but I can only speak for my experience and like my friends. friends' experience. So in my generation, I think most of my friends have had very supportive parents. So because I chose BA history, which is unheard of till in middle class Indian families, right? So when it comes to educational goals, I think my family has been very supportive, and in fact my friends also. So we could get all those experiences that we wanted with the family. So we barely had any sort of restrictions that Ranveer sir is saying that yes, okay, they refuse it. And sometimes, yeah, I think it also depends on how well communicated those reasons are. They're not trying to be spoilers. Sometimes, sometimes people are just trying to be spoilers in achieving your goals. But if they are able to explain themselves coherently, yes, okay, fine, yeah, okay, don't pursue this. It'll be harmful in the long run. That sort of thing. Coming back to my question, actually, I was curious about how when Dr. Manisha ma'am talked about how we dialogue with technology in the modern era, right? So dialogue with AI has made us more introverted, essentially, with establishment of AI and how social media has made us more introverted. So I was curious on how we can switch that into how we can channel technology into a more not precisely as a end goal where okay it's a one way communication where I'm speaking into AI, but where we can channel it into a facilitator more, right? Because social media of course has made communication easier than ever. It's practically what we are using right now. So how do we channel that into dialogue, and how do we prevent that from happening? How do we prevent that natural introversion that has crept into our lives due to technology?
See, that's the natural, as I have been, I believe in it very strongly. I believe technology have a purpose. Technology have a purpose is to, think, connect, and share. The idea is think, connect, and share. So it is like some idea which is in a minuscule stage in my head. I thought over it. I tried to grow it, right? I tried to connect with some people, like you are my group on the AI right now. We have connected, and if you people certify, or even if like-minded group certify, then I would like to throw my idea to the world. Like if I just give you one example, Facebook is an idea which was thought. Then he tried to connect with some people on it. And then he thought that why is it just to connect a some? Let's share it. Right? So sharing became open to everyone. So the Facebook is flooded. Right? But what has been missing in Facebook is if you open most of the pages of Facebook, what is missing? It's a platform to express your opinion. It is a platform where you can create a repository for what is the purpose of the Facebook, right? Where you can create a repository for yourself, where you can create a library for yourself that, okay, I feel like reading this, you keep it there, right? And if you feel like sharing something which is very happy or a sad event of your life, you would like to flash it to somebody who you feel is, capable of understanding. So therefore, there is a provision of sharing the messages privately, right? But all this has evolved after what? All this has evolved once you provided a data into the AI. AI got to know that, okay, people want to talk separately. They want to make the group believe that we are only interacting here, but they want separate messaging also. So message privately is also there. But ultimately what? The data given in has gone into fleshed into. Now, as I say, everything comes with a negative cost. So AI has also come with a negative cost. It came to give you information just in a 5 to 7 inches box, which is in your hand, connected to internet. You are a powerful word in your own self. But unless you are using this power to learn and to connect and to make it more fruitful, right? By knowing what is your lacunas, or what is your shortcoming, or where you need to improve.
unless you identify them by your own self, AI just can't help you. AI can help you to calculate the footsteps. Okay, your 10,000 steps are over, right? And now the time to meditate. It can give you an alarm. It can tell you, okay, you meditated, you didn't meditate. You walked, you did not walk. But that consciousness of installing the app, right, into your AI for calculating 10,000 steps is something which is your natural instinct towards your health.
Yeah.
So self-awareness is something that is primary. And how you would get it? I mean, my students find it very difficult to read bulky books of history, right? Everything is like 500 pages, 300 pages. They say, who is going to read it? Just tell us what assignment to do and let us get rid of this. But whenever I just tell them, okay, read a literature, read a novel, right? And these days I'm fascinated with another novel in the name of Red, Umberto Eco, right? I refer this to everybody. Why? Because you find self-awareness. You find a very thinking person. You find a very thinking boy. You find murder mysteries. You find monastery mysteries. You find all kind of things into it, right? So it naturally makes you to think, अच्छा यार मेरी life में भी हुआ था, this has happened in my life also. Okay, I can relate with this event. Okay, diaries are important. This is the boy who has written the diary, just casual attitude. Okay, I'll just write a diary of my day-to-day activities in the monastery. This has become a history, right?
Yeah.
But who is reading with an open mind would be able to find everything into it. Even one novel can change your life. But if you're reading with a closed mind, with the idea, okay, I have to finish it, it is a task, let me scroll some reels and then come back to it, again scroll and then again come back, you are nowhere.
The intention, basically, yeah.
Yeah, so self-awareness, what is your instinct? Which AI can't locate for you.
AI can basically provide us with the keywords we need. So that, yeah.
Keywords also, they can help you to express. Like you can use the chat GPT to write your assignment. They can give you good words, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, it can give you an idea, which is your own personal idea. Otherwise, you don't need script writers. You don't need novelists. You don't need editors. Everyone is having AI.
Yeah. Because, sorry, I'm taking a lot of time here, but just one last, because if you read the news, there's a lot of, stories coming out from South Korea and Japan where people have basically developed very complicated relationships with artificial intelligence programs, and people take very extreme steps when and harm themselves when these programs are shut down. And isn't that sort of a dialogue that they have constructed with technology, with AI there, which has turned into something very negative, but still in some way it is, that sort of relationship that they have formed. So how does that factor into this discourse?
See, I don't see there is a relationship that they have built. I see this as an addiction. It's like a cigarette. Somebody tells you, to de-addict yourself, you don't like that idea. Right? If you are addicted to some drug, somebody tells you leave it, it's harming you, you don't like it. Same is the case with AI. With AI, people are getting cervical, eye infections, tennis elbows, all kind of problems. But they are not able to leave it. Why? Because you want to feel important. And if you are made feel important in the family, you will not go to your AI. You will only approach it once or twice a day, think, okay, how many mails and how many messages. That's it. You will fix an hour in the day, you will just respond them and you are over. If there is somebody who is making you feel important, like just to give you one more example, if you go out, on a date with a friend who is very close to you, throughout the day, you don't feel like the need of looking at your phone.
Yeah.
And if it's switched off or battery conks off, you are like, thank God it's gone. It's acha hua, right? It's good that it is conked off. But if you are out with somebody whom you are not liking, or your father is taking you for forceful shopping, you will be like, how am I concerned with his sports shopping? How am I concerned with his blazer shopping? I don't know why I'm here. Why is wasting my time? Every time you will be like, and he will be irritated with the fact, I have got you here and you are into your phone. Look at my stuff, give some opinion. And you are like, your age, your opinion, your office, you know, how do I know? Because
So in this case, like both parties are looking for validation here, right?
yes,
Yeah.
father is looking for validation because he has seen your generation or your kind of generation going into a very different direction.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want that to repeat in his home. So they are trying to be overtly comfortable, overtly, kind to you by making you feel adult, that we respect your opinion. But the moment you give your very, the so-called, youthful opinion, you should have a very costly and very nicely looking shirt. Then your father would say, it's a shirt ultimately. You wash it and it's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Jay,
So he
Dr.
applies
Manisha, one
balance.
second. Yeah, Jay, we will take further questions after we finish one round from
Okay.
others
Yeah, I
as
think I
well.
was okay.
So, yeah, thank you. Dr. Manisha, would you please close your thought and then we'll go to Solomon because he was already wanting to ask more questions. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm supposed to answer Sir's question as you said about the family. I would like to comment on
Yeah,
that.
yes, please.
Families in itself are a complex institution, and there's no problem so far. There is a father, mother, and kids. The problem starts coming up only when the people are able to give their opinion. If the wife is a homemaker and husband is a breadwinner, then naturally he's the runner. He can say he is the he's the person for the home. So wife knows that she has to go with most of the things. She has to bear the tantrums. But if the understanding, the baseline understanding about each other is missing, she would revolt, and there will be a constant disturbance. Interestingly, it becomes complex when another layer of relationship comes in, like the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. That becomes a problem. Why? Because it's a different generation who is trying to conserve, protect, save, multiply for her next generation. There is somebody who is saying, now I am married, I know what is essential for my family and my time. I would like to do that. So that confrontation comes in. And there is a man in between who is supposed to negotiate with both. If he is a good negotiator, he would be able to balance the both. But if he fails to negotiate over a period of time, then the rift comes in. And naturally, the distancing starts. With the kids, your understanding continues to be very good till the point the kids reach the age of 11, 12. Till the point they don't form opinions and they need you for everything, every suggestion. But the moment they reach an age where they have support system outside the family also, they start going, right? So that is what I say. Family is itself in a very closed environment is it's a very cohesive and you can say a very, a closed unit and a associated unit. But the moment another layer of relationship comes in, be it a brother or sister-in-law, then the tune changes because it is believed that it is this person who is earning or it is we who are earning, then the right of this particular thing is more onto it, it's less on that. So that becomes a fight of basically rights. And it becomes more intense, it gets vulgar when the communication fails.
Anyone else wants to throw any light on this? Dr. Manisha has already, shared her. I wanted to say something, but maybe I'll come back after on this regard. Why one small, observation, which because family actually plays as the first unit in the society where dialogue essentially should begin. It's the primary socialization space, ideally. So when we use the term repressive or progressive or any kind of essivism that we want to talk about, I think that dialogue, because of many other factors which intervenes between these two generations, and one factor which Dr. Manisha had raised is about what are those aspects which really guides dialogue formation in itself is language, knowledge,
critical understanding, listening, and understanding in general. But she also, I think, raised one extremely vital point, that you cannot go back to your preconceived notion, but knowledge coming from the understanding of the existing, existing base of whatever information we have. So if we go back to really trace that, then I think family somewhere uses preconceived and their own experiences as the citadel to pass it on to their future generation or forthcoming generation, and that kind of breaks down the early part of the communication. So trust, opinions, and the initial respect, I think that is why in the future also, when we migrate into other larger institutions and organizations, dialogue is something which doesn't come to us so naturally because it is not instilled in the family. Is one observation that I would like to share, and so we can move on to Mr. Solomon and Zishana.
Good evening to all of you. I would like to ask my madam regard to interaction between ideology, the political ideology that sort of affects our politics and also affects the families, that affects the social formation. And the identity, essence of an identity of a person, and how it plays really a solid role in the interfaith or interreligious or intercultural dialogue. Now, suppose can take another dimension, the faith of a person. Can faith really become sort of give you a critical analysis of this ideology? This particular ideology also is affecting the faith of the person, and that faith of the person plays a role in building up of a particular identity. Now, these are some of the interactive mode of the dynamism that goes on. Can it affect? I have seen a very extremely liberal human rights activist completely somersaulted to become adherent to a particular ideology that's quite repressive. That doesn't allow you to understand the politics and the social formation critically. Now, when I asked this particular person, and I have seen other possible, I am working among the tribals. Among the tribals now we see there are two identities. For example, tribal identity, then you've got a religious identity. Now, do they call us together? Will it have an effect in our dialogue? No, I think these are some of the areas maybe we can touch upon. If we can throw light on these things, or others also can. I don't know if I am clear about it.
Dr. Manisha, please go ahead if you wish to.
Yep. So, as I mentioned in the very beginning also, the faith, basically. Faith is something which is very personal. As I said, you need to build that trust with something. And the idea of the faith or interfaith dialogue or interreligious dialogue can only survive when there is a sufficient, when there is sufficient humanism that exists. Without that, I think nothing can actually sustain and can move forward on this. So that's one major problem of the interfaith dialogue. You want to make it successful, then interfaith dialogue has to have the basic elements of humanism in it. And when somebody who is adhering to an ideology is doing so, is not doing ideally for the sake of the faith, but he is doing for the sake of his own existence or her own existence, which they believe will be in danger if they admit to something else. Even they know the reality is different. They know the statistics data, they know what is the information on hand, but they don't want the other one, or they don't want to allow the other one to seep into their word of faith and say, okay, see, there is a problem in this particular. So it's more about you try to protect your own core and try to prove others
that what I have believed all through my life is not something wrong.
No. I think that's a lead actually. That's a good lead. But how the faith actually can become a critical analytical element on ideology, on formation of one's own identity itself. That's my own faith. Yes, my faith is formed by my own religion, my religiosity, my devotions, or the faith elements within me, the dogma that I hold, the dogma on world, the worldview that is formed within me. That worldview, can it become a critical analysis on the ideology that is being imposed upon? This is is there a possibility of a sort of, when we come to the dialogue, I think our interreligious interfaith dialogue also should change this sort of repressive ideologies. Is there a possibility? This is what I thought.
No, there is a possibility, but that possibility will only come up when there is, as I say again and again, you need to have a proper understanding of the fact. The ones who are doing religious literature all the time, obviously, they would not like to defy what they have been doing all through. But somebody who is doing religious literature with scientific literature would be somewhere able to say something very, very significant, right?
Yes.
Ms. Vishana, would you like to take up your question?
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Ma'am, as you say in your session, when we use any species for the experiment, and you say that it's a cruel thing, and I also accept that it's a cruel thing. But my question is that if we stop doing experiment with species, then whenever any new virus, for example, COVID-19, and we all know what happened during the period of time, many of the people lost their loved ones. So how can we make any antivirus for any disease?
See, I am not to comment on this, but I believe obviously there is a team of scientists behind it, and I would not comment anything on science about it. But yes, she says that the dialogue has failed in between the science and the environment. That is very much there. Otherwise, people have been existing. There would have been famines. There would have been disasters. There would have been viral diseases. People have been dying all the time. But there was not a hierarchy that, okay, animals are less useful, humans are more. Once this understanding is created, then it becomes a problem. Rashmi, we have been doing this for 2 hours. I don't know.
Yes. No, I think if Zishana is satisfied or critically, moved to revisit her thoughts and ideas.
Can I add something in continuation with?
Yeah. So we in 1.5 minutes because we have 5 more minutes to go. If you can keep it short.
So as Zishana was just posed the question, so I would like to bring the concept of One Health, where it is strongly believed that health is not we are talking in isolation to everything else while considering the mankind itself, but it is heavily influenced by the nature, by the living organism, by the animals. So all those things are interrelated. And for me, where Dr. Nisha was quoting that thing that mankind lost the dialogue with nature, with environment per se. So I think this is all about the epistemological understanding where we say that nature has its own way to communicate, so we are unable to read those signs. So because whenever we are saying about dialogue, we are talking about some kind of communication where both the parties are communicating, one is sender, one is receiver. So nature is giving its hints to us, but we are failing to just catch those hints. So that kind of communication, that kind of dialogue, we are failing to understand, I think. So that's my understanding of that.
Thank you, Ranveer. Maybe Dr. Ranveer. Dr. Manisha, really thank you so much. Unless there is any more questions, we are proceeding. I think the way you have shared the humanistic
form of types of dialogue through medieval history is something very, very intriguing. And you have brought in the idea of court and darbar and that open spaces where it was there, and how new inventions. And what I have gathered is that technology has failed the organic communications that we used to have, and how there are some participants who actually raised it, that isolation and cocooning is something which is also destructuring our humanistic ways. So I think while you have touched upon faith and gender and religion, what ought to be intercultural, I think one of the primordial question that probably you have raised through your today's session is who is suffering in this missing out of the dialogue. So maybe with that, I will really like to thank you for this such an enlightening and such a critical way of putting history and contemporary pathways to understanding dialogue. One more thing that I would like to tell the participants is probably you will get the reflection forms in your group. So you will have to send that. And I think that is, so maybe that's it. That's it for now. And thank you once again, all of you. Bye bye. Have a good evening.
So